Well, 18 minutes after 7, you're watching Morning Live, and thanks for doing so. Now, as we've been reporting, teachers' unions have been saying for some time now that schools are not and will not be ready for today's return, citing a lack of personal protective equipment and water, amongst other issues. And it does appear that the Department of Basic Education now agrees with them and, of course, other stakeholders, having delayed the return of learners for 1 week. But are the unions convinced that teachers should be back and that schools will be ready next week? Joining us now to try and discuss this and answer the question, perhaps, is Allan Thompson, who is the president of the National Teachers Union, NATU. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Takina, and good morning to the viewers of Morning Live.
Mr. Thompson, let's first start by gauging your response to what has happened thus far and the fact that the return of learners to schools, at least for grade 7 and 12, in the public schooling band has been postponed by a week.
Well, I can indicate that we had a very good meeting with the minister on the 30th of May, where we indicated to the minister that all schools were not ready in the Republic of South Africa to reopen on the 1st of June. It's very surprising that the minister could not come back to us, because she indicated that she was going to come back to us before she could even communicate any information to the members of public. We are worried about the tragedy of consultation undertaken in bad faith when we discuss with the Department of Basic Education, because when we make a call to the department, our call was supported by the reports that the minister also received, which was indicating that all the schools in the Republic of South Africa were not ready to receive both teachers and learners. And we are very surprised now when the minister is saying the teachers are supposed to go back to school today, knowingly that the majority of the schools were not cleaned, were not fumigated accordingly, have not received the PPEs. Some of the schools are without water, toilets are not clean. And that is why we are saying it is very frustrating that the minister is engaging with us in bad faith, is making promises of coming back to us so that we can take discussions further, and she's failing every time to do that.
So just to be clear, because as a union, you are on record stating that you would encourage your members not to return to school today. This was when the announcement was initially made that learners in grades 12 and 7 would return. So does that mean that you had, or at least your members had, no intention of returning today anyway?
Well, the main question here, Sakina, is the minister legally permitted to compel teachers to go to schools that are non-compliant in terms of the safety and health standard? And that in terms of what the National Command Council gazetted, that no worker must go to the workplace if that workplace does not meet the bare minimums. So as a result of that government gazette by the National Command, we are not expecting our members to report for duty. Our wish was that the Department of Basic Education will prepare all the schools and make sure that they meet the bare minimum, and thereafter we'll be able to encourage our members to go to school and receive the necessary training of a so-called new normal. But the department is depriving us an opportunity to have engagement with them, to agree on the method that will be utilized to prepare the schools that are still outstanding, the schools that have not been fumigated, the schools that have not received the PPEs. Now, it will be highly irresponsible of us if we make a pronouncement that teachers who are in schools that have never been prepared, schools that are not meeting the minimum requirement, to go and report for those schools. We have seen what is happening in the Western Cape. We are getting reports that there are teachers who have already tested positive for COVID-19. In KwaZulu-Natal, we have already received reports that some of the teachers also have tested positive for COVID-19. We cannot then say under such circumstances. It's one of the issues, in fact, we raised with the minister, that we need to engage with her and come back with a good strategy that must be adopted, because the classroom is a different workplace. One teacher is expected to engage with hundreds of children, which means if those children are infected, they are likely to go home and infect their grandparents and infect their parents. And that's a situation that we do not want to condone under the circumstance.
But just to be fair and just to be clear, Mr. Thompson, when you talk about teachers who have tested positive, you're not suggesting by any means, are you, that they would have contracted COVID-19 at the schools?
No, we are not saying that. We are not saying that, but the fact of the matter is that they went, in fact, before even they went to school, they tested and they received the reports after they've went to school and they've discussed with other teachers. Our fear is that how many of those people, if we follow the tracing method, were also infected by their own colleagues who came to school with the virus already in their body. So those are the issues that we wanted to discuss also with the minister. So we are not saying they contracted the virus at the school, but the reports are saying they went to school while they were still waiting for the reports, some of them, and they received the reports after they've reported already for duty, and only to find that they've engaged with their colleagues when they've already tested positive for COVID-19.
So with regard to the cleaning of schools, and in your report in particularly, you talk about the deep cleansing and disinfection of schools. What exactly does that entail? And have teachers been brought up to speed with regard to the clarity they need to actually disinfect these schools?
No, not necessarily, Tsokina. In fact, what we have been saying is that to the department, it's important for the environment to be clean so that when whoever is coming in the school and is touching the surfaces, those surfaces have already been fumigated, which means it becomes not easy for those that are in the school to infect each other if the environment has been disinfected already. But we wanted that to be done first so that the department can be able to organize workshops and train teachers about what is it that needs to be observed. What is it that they must do to make sure that learners are not discussing in groups? What is it that must be done during break? What is it that must be done in the staff rooms? What is the distance that teachers must observe among themselves so that they run away from infecting each other? But unfortunately, that opportunity has not been properly granted because we are still having schools that are not ready to receive the teachers. And it becomes very difficult for us as a trade union, as the National Teachers Union, to encourage our members to go to schools, knowing exactly that those schools are without water. The department has failed to install the water tanks. They have failed to come with their tankers so that they can fill all the empty tanks that have been delivered in schools. They have failed to disinfect all the classrooms. They have failed in the schools that were vandalized to fix those schools. They have failed also to provide the mobile classes, mobile toilets in those schools that were affected by the tropical cyclone last year. Those are the issues, critical issues, that are making us very reluctant and say that there is a brutality of the department engaging with us in bad faith, which is something that we do not appreciate from the Minister of MNG's caliber, a minister that we respect, a minister that has accumulated the required experience in the system of education, that she can simply respond in this manner of simple saying to teachers, go to places where she knows exactly that do not meet the basic requirement of safety and safety for them to find it comfortable to go to school.
Final question, Mr. Thompson. Members of NATU, that is the National Teachers Union, are they returning to school today? Will they be there for, as the department has now pointed out, for preparation and orientation? Will they be reporting for duty today?
Members of the National Teachers Union are ready to report to all the schools that are meeting the minimum requirements, which means as long as the schools like today, they do not meet the requirements, the department should not expect the members of the National Teachers Union report for duty.
So how many of those schools, do you have percentages? How many of your members will not be returning to school today?
Well, that all our members won't be returning to school in all the provinces in the Republic of South Africa. In fact, what we are also doing, we'll be meeting with our own legal team and weigh our options, that what kind of options do we have under the circumstance where the minister is trying to compel teachers to report for duty in the workplace that is not safe for them to go to.
So just to be absolutely clear, Mr. Thompson, you are saying that all NATU members will not be reporting for duty today?
Yes.
And how many teachers are we talking about in total?
We are talking about almost 50,000 teachers in the Republic of South Africa.
And with regard to your engagement with the Department of Basic Education, when are you likely to meet with them to try and resolve this impasse?
We are already preparing a letter. In fact, we are preparing a letter that will be delivered to the offices of the department today before the minister even addresses the media. But we are also hoping that our legal team should have finalized the recommendation that they are making for us to be able to see different options that we are having. Because we believe that we have been repeating ourselves more than enough now to the department to say schools are not ready to receive learners. Schools are not ready to receive teachers. If schools are not ready to receive learners, how can schools be ready to receive teachers? That is why then we are saying we are failing to understand the intentions of the Department of Basic Education under the circumstance, because we are seeing that day in and day out, the members of this republic are getting infected, and we are trying to avoid that kind of a situation, because we know when teachers can go to school without all the precautionary measures being put in place, they are likely to infect the learners. They are also likely to infect the parents through the learners. That is why then we are trying our level best to avoid that kind of a situation. We are trying our level best to expose our teachers. We are trying our level best to make sure that when schools open, they must open at the same time, because we have only one education system. We are having only one major assessment that all the learners will have to follow. That is why then we do not want to see other schools being deprived simply because of the incompetencies of the Provincial Department of Education, because of the incompetencies of those people who are supposed to prepare the school.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Allan Thompson, president of the National Teachers Union, and saying that all 50,000 of their members will not be returning to school today. And we'll continue unpacking the story for you. But we're going to take a quick break, and then Leanne will have headline news for you.